Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session, Meet Microsoft Mesh. My name is Anna. I'm an event planner for the Reactor. Before we dive in, I'd love to touch on a few points. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We definitely encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. We'll also be sharing some useful links in the chat, so be sure to keep your eye on it. The session is recorded and will be available on demand in 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel, which brings us to today's session. It will run for about an hour with time for questions throughout. I'm now going to turn it over to our speaker, Cathy. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you. So glad to be here. So Cathy Moya coming to you live from my office/craft room here in Redmond, Washington. A little gloomy today. And really excited to talk to you about Mesh wherever you are in the world. So I'm a customer experience program manager. That means that I work on bridging our customers using the product and the engineers building the product so that we can get all of the feedback running both directions and make it something great for you. So what I'm going to do today is give you a little bit of an introduction to Microsoft Mesh, go through some of the components, and then it's going to be very demo heavy. I want to dive in and actually show you how to get your hands on it and start using it for fun things. So what we have available in our Mesh experiences right now is, first of all, avatars for Teams is generally available. So if you have the appropriate regular Teams licenses, you can go ahead and have your avatars. And there's Avatar Cathy. You can see, I don't know, does it look like me? And that is great. So rather than having to be on camera, I can put my avatar up, especially when I have some of those like 7 a.m. meetings and I'm just not ready yet. Avatar Cathy takes those meetings. But then we also have the actual immersive experiences. So you can take your avatar that you've created that's been talking in Teams, and in public preview now, you can go into two different immersive experiences. The first one is built right into Teams. So it is 2 clicks. You say view immersive space, and that little avatar that you've created now can go and walk around that area and have conversations with people like you would in real life using something called spatial audio. So when two people are next to each other, they hear each other better. As you move further away, just like real life, you start falling off. And so you could have little clusters of people having conversations in 2s and 3s like you would at a happy hour. And if you don't like the conversation you're in, you can pick up, listen to the other ones, say, I'm going to go join that one over there. And so it gives you a lot of agency. It gives you a lot of more potentials for interaction. And we'll talk about what some of those are. So that is in public preview. We'll show you how to turn that on. It is right now in classic Teams. It will be coming soon to the new Teams.1 experience. Immersive spaces is something that you access through a standalone app, as we'll be showing you. And then you go into this Mesh app, and I will talk about the headsets and supported clients in a minute. And you can also create custom environments to use with a standalone app. So you could have a digital twin of your flagship conference center, or you could be on a boat in the middle of the ocean. You could be on a spaceship going to Mars, underneath the ocean, talking with whales. Anything that you can think of, you could design it into one of these experiences, and then you can take your avatars in there. So for your client experiences, you can use a Quest headset. Quest 2 is the supported one here at public preview. And when you have your headset on, the way that it feels when you're immersed is, you turn your physical head and the headset is showing you a 360-degree view. So it is incredibly immersive. You have little speakers right by your ears. You can't multitask because you are just in that environment wherever you are. But we know not everybody has headsets. They're expensive. There are some issues right now with managing them at an enterprise level. And so we fully expect that a lot of people are just going to be using a regular PC. And so there is a PC desktop client that you can download from the Microsoft Store and go in. And then when you turn your avatar's head, your avatar will get that 360 view and can even, spin around in the space, just like you're playing a first person video game on your screen. And it's still very immersive and can still give you that feeling of presence and immersion. And you get the spatial audio, regardless of if you're in a headset or on a PC. There's also a mesh portal that you'll be using to create your events that you want to enter into. And then if you're in Teams, to use the avatars or use the immersive space and avatars, then you just go directly into the Teams UI on the desktop client. We do not have a mobile client at this point. So for public preview, these are your clients here. So licensing. I know I always see a lot of questions about this one. If you want to use avatars or the immersive space public preview, then you need one of the regular kind of Teams licenses. So Essentials, Business, M365 or Office 365. If you want to do Microsoft Mesh standalone app custom environments, you do need Teams Premium for that in a commercial tenant. And then if you want to build custom environments, then you would also need to work out your Unity licensing separate from anything to do with Mesh. So for Teams Premium, there is a 30-day free trial. So this is, with your tenant that you've created, it's a one-time only thing. You can't add another Teams Premium trial. So don't turn it on until you're ready, because it's only going to last for 30 days. But you can get 25 licenses. And so those licenses would go to people uploading your custom events from Unity. They would go to people attending your events, people organizing your events. And the way you set this up, because I know sometimes finding your way through all of the, the spaces here in Mesh can be a little bit convoluted. So under admin.microsoft.com, 365 Admin Center, under billing, that's where you go to purchase services, but that isn't going to include this, free purchase of your trial. And so it's under collaboration and communication. You will see Microsoft Teams Premium, introductory pricing. And then under details, you'll have an option to start a free trial rather than buying it. But once you click that start free trial, it's going to come back and say, are you sure? And once you click yes, then your 30 days is starting at that point. So make sure that you are ready to actually move into it then. We do have documentation on this since we are in public preview. It is publicly visible there. So I'll have a couple of links here, but these are titles that you could be looking for. We have one document called Preparing Your Organization for Mesh. And so I'll cover a few things that you want to think about as you're getting ready to roll this out. And I would always say the first thing for any large project is get an executive sponsor, or even just, as you're trying to try this out, make sure you have somebody who can help remove the roadblocks, smooth over any of the rough spots. Make sure they get excited about what Mesh can do. Make sure they have a really great experience the first time that they come in, and really believe in the potential of this, because, it's not just another meeting. This really is a whole different kind of paradigm of possibilities of things that we can do. If you're going to use the Teams features, avatars, or immersive space for Teams, then yes, you will need to either be the Teams admin or be good buddies with your Teams admin. So make friends, because that's where you're going to go to, do the controls that are available there. There are some ports and endpoints that have to be enabled for Mesh to work. So talk to your security people. At some companies, it may be as easy as filling out a form and giving a small justification. Others, you may have to go through a lot of meetings and discussion, and it can take a long time. So make sure that you have those conversations early on so that you'll be able to just move into things, like, especially if you're going to turn on that Teams Premium, make sure you have everything squared away with all your ports and endpoints first. Endpoint management. I've spent a long time at Microsoft on endpoint management and config manager, Intune, endpoint manager. So there is a Mesh app, and just like any store app from Microsoft, you can deploy it using your MDM solution there, like Intune. There's also there is something called conditional access that some of you may have, which looks at certain configuration of your devices before deciding if they're going to let it on the network. And the thing with the conditional access is, we're talking about a Quest headset, which is a consumer device. So you may have some policies. You may need to go back to those security people and have some discussions about what you're going to allow on your network and how you're going to manage that. So that's all outside of mesh. It really is just between, your MDM and Meta for your Quest device and your security people. If you want to do Azure Cloud scripting for your mesh standalone, for those custom environments, you could be doing things like bringing data that you already have into your custom environment. But that's going to require an Azure subscription. So make sure you know who your admin is. Make sure you know how to get a subscription within your organization. Sometimes there are hoops to jump through with that. And speaking of hoops, so Avatars is in public, is generally available. So, it has its licensing terms. Immersive spaces and custom environments are in public preview. So it's always a good idea to make sure your legal and privacy people are reviewing those before you're accepting those on, behalf of your organization. But there may be some other people that you want to talk to. The list above is people who are probably going to have to actually be clicking things and doing things to make stuff happen. But in terms of internal groups, hopefully you have some sort of change management. You're thinking about how you roll things out to people. You have a help desk to support those people after it's rolled out. Your HR department might be interested in this because there are some new paradigms of interaction. Mesh is great for learning and development. If you want to be building custom environments, you might want to talk to your branding people. Are you using the right colors? Are you using the right logos? Do you need to develop 3D assets to use internally there? Licensing, as we mentioned, make sure you have that all squared away. And let's see, I don't have the computer requirements here. I think we have those in the documentation, but I'd have to check on that one. So the other thing that you need to know about the immersive experiences and the custom worlds here is that it's only going to work within a single tenant. So a guest account doesn't work for these experiences. It used to be called Azure Active Directory. Now it's Entra ID. So if I wanted to have somebody come into an event that I'm running in Microsoft.com, it's not very likely that I'm going to be able to create a at Microsoft.com account for them to do that. So what a lot of people are looking at is at this point creating separate tenants. So if you want to do that, this is another planning piece to think about because you may have internal policies about the tenants that you can create and how they're going to be created. They will have to have their own licensing. And then they also need all the security. You'll have to make sure you patch them, keep them all up to date. And then you do want to think about the experiences of switching. So we have the Teams immersive experience. And as I mentioned, that's only right now in Teams Classic, which can be a little trickier to switch between. So if you want to create a separate tenant, people would have to switch out of their day-to-day teams, like I live in my teams every day, and then go into this other tenant, which means I may have other communications piling up on the other side. So, it may be better to have it, at least for the teams in that main tenant, but you could also set up a separate tenant maybe for your standalone. That's pretty easy since it's just a Windows Store app that you're logging into. And so you can just log out from one account and log in with a different account and be able to kind of go back and forth there. So a few things to think about. And this is going to be very demo heavy, so I'll be flipping back and forth a lot between slides and demos. And we'll start with avatars, since that's readily available right now. There really isn't much that you have to do here. There are some endpoints that we do require, but these are pretty standard endpoints: HTTP, HTTPS, a couple of domain names that you have to make sure are allowed. And then all of this is governed through the same Teams infrastructure. So as I mentioned, you need to either be the Teams admin or be friends with someone who can set this all up for you. And so we're going to go into admin.teams.microsoft.com. And here's my admin center over here. And under the admin center, I have something for Teams apps. And this is where we're going to do all of the control here. So under Manage Apps, there are many, many apps down here. And I would just search for my avatars. There they are. And so this is going to be on by default. So if you did not want to make this available, you could set it to non-allowed. But of course, no one's going to be able to use it there. So as long as it's allowed, people will be able to go into Teams. There's a little apps thing that I'll show you in a minute. They can click that. They can say, I want to find avatars, and they can install it. And, so as long as it's allowed, it's available for them, assuming they just have the regular Teams licensing. But what you might want to do is make it so that the avatars are automatically installed, so people don't even have to go and look for the app and install it. And that's something that you do here under your setup policies. So I could make it part of the global policy and just say everybody is always going to have avatars there and installed. Or if I wanted to do maybe just a pilot at first, I might want to create just a smaller group. And then I have to add the apps that I want automatically installed by name. And there we go. Now, there are two other kind of controls we're talking about on this page. The first is user pinning. So that will let a user decide they want to make that permanently show up in the left nav of their Teams window. And the other one, as an admin, I can force things to be pinned on that left nav. This is not something I would actually do with avatars, because you're going to have another entry point into the experience when you're actually in a Teams meeting. So I don't find that I go to that navigation bar very much. But if you wanted to do it for a while to make it more discoverable, then you might think about doing that. And then it just mentions the user pinning again, that users can pin that. And so there's my avatars allowed, and then I can come over here for my group policy. And I have a group that I've already created in Enter ID called Mesh Users, and say that they're going to get that avatars allowed policy. And then it's going to go by rank about, which policy, if people are belonging to multiple groups, how it's going to decide which one to apply there. And so it does take a little bit to take effect there. But then soon people will just have it automatically available when they go to join Teams meetings. The other piece of this is that under permissions policies, I could decide that I wanted to block this, or block avatars, or block the immersive experiences, because I could do that at the global policy. Or maybe I just say, hey, I have a couple people who I don't want to have access to this one. So the default is that it's allowing access to all Microsoft apps, but I could say block specific apps and allow all others. And then, like I did before, I can put my avatars over here. Oh, and I have to add the title first. Sometimes I forget that. All right, now let me block. And so then I save this, and then it has manage users over here. So I could say, great, Diego is going to be blocked from avatars for whatever reason. All right, I see a couple questions coming in here. Will students be able to utilize this experience? It all comes down to the licensing. So in the documentation, it does show which licenses are allowed and which aren't. So if they have one of those licenses, yes. If they don't, then no. And do you need license for people outside of our organization? So as I mentioned, it only works for people within the same tenant, within the same Entra ID. There is no guest access. So if you create an account for them in a tenant, that account will need a license, just because everyone's part of that same tenant. How can I activate Teams Exploratory? I think that was the trial, and that was what I showed back here in the Microsoft Admin Center under billing and under purchase services. that's where you can go and activate your free 30-day Teams premium trial just once. The amount of people who come to workshops vary. So again, every user who is going to be in a Teams immersive space meeting needs to have a Teams license. Every user who is going to be attending or managing an event within that tenant needs to have a Teams premium license within that tenant. There we go. Okay, so my avatars are set up. They can be pinned or not, blocked or not. And then while we're in here, let's just talk about the immersive spaces as well. They also need endpoints, but they need a few more ports than the avatars do. So you need that range of TCP and UDP ports open. Can't skimp there, got to do the whole range. Same endpoints of Microsoft Office.com there. And then all you need to do is make sure that somebody has not turned off the Immersive Spaces app in the in the manage apps, because it is on by default there. So people could go and start using it right away, assuming they have a Teams license. You don't need to pin it and you don't need to pre-install it because it's just there. It's coming through a different kind of experience than the rest of your mesh apps. So it's, basically it will just be there for anyone who has a Teams app. But if you wanted to go in and check and make sure, like if it wasn't showing up for some reason, then you go back to the admin center and under manage apps, you can just search for mesh. Easier to type than the full thing. And there's my immersive spaces. And also you could do the permissions policies here. So you could block people from using it. So if people don't see it under their view menu, those are a couple places to check. The other thing to check is to make sure that they aren't using the new Teams 2.1, because at this point, it only works for Teams Classic. So if they start Teams Classic, then they should be able to see it under the view menu, like I'll demo in a minute here. All right, so we're set up. So we have avatars. And as you can see, I've got some UI here when I'm joining the meeting, and my avatars are just there. Now, I did think about, what's the best way to show this? And I decided that for both of these Teams features, I'm just going to use videos, because otherwise I'm trying to show Teams when I'm sharing in StreamYard, and it gets to, what do we call it? Computerception. So we said, no, we're just going to go with the videos here. So if we could bring up the avatar video. And I'm just going to talk about this a little bit. So I mentioned the left navigation bar where things can get pinned. So over here on the far side, you can actually see, chat and Teams and calls. And so you could pin avatars there. If you click on apps, you notice how that's actually selected right now. And so you could install it from apps here. You can see all the apps that are installed, or you could add apps that aren't there. And once it's there, you can open it, and this will bring up your avatar builder, but you can also get in there from the space where you're trying to join a meeting. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And I don't necessarily come into this avatar builder all that often. Usually I'm doing it when I'm in my, my actual meeting. So if I'm just joining a regular Teams meeting, just like this, as part of that call join screen experience, I do have to make sure my camera is turned off, because if you don't see avatars, turn your camera off, and then you'll be able to do the effects and avatars. You can have up to 3 avatars configured, so they can have different faces completely, or they can just have different clothing. It's up to you. And then when you come in and you're using your avatar in a meeting, you have some different reactions that you can do that will actually make your avatar do these things in its little box in your meeting. Just to the left of that react button, there is a raise hand button, and that'll actually make your avatar raise its hand up there and hold it up. And it will also still show just like a regular Teams hand raise. So it is very good. We've noticed that that actually tends to get more attention than just a human, kind of raising their hand. We have some additional options that you can configure here, but you do have to kind of dig. We know that this is a bit of an issue here, but we have additional emotes that you can do here. So, nodding your head or thinking. And so these can be, kind of fun to show. Yeah, I am there. I am actively participating in this meeting, even though you aren't seeing my face on video. Does this work with HoloLens 1 or 2? Nope. The supported clients, as I showed, were PC, and Quest 2 is the officially supported here for public preview. We've done it on Quest 3. It works. We just haven't done like the full release to say, yes, it's officially supported, but yeah, it should work. Let's see. So let's go back to the deck for a minute. There we go. So using avatars we saw in your Teams calls. And I really do love my avatar because especially, those mornings when I've just finished my VR workout and I have like that VR imprint on my face, my avatar is much better off. So then what you can do is you can take your avatar and bring it into your immersive space. And I've worked on a lot of different VR platforms. Onboarding is usually my biggest headache of trying to get anybody into any immersive space except this one. Because once you make sure you have the licensing there, it's all set. You go to the view menu in your meeting, you click immersive space, and boom, you're in. Assuming you've already set up your avatar. And this is why we really want people to set up their avatars first and use those in those meetings, because then they just walk right in. There are a couple of screens, are you sure? And, will you allow this and things? But, really those are the ones people just click yes. And then you're in that immersive space. And again, I'm not going to try to demo it live here because of Inception, but let's bring up a video here. And I'll talk a little bit about what your experience would be like after you click that immersive space and then click the join. So this environment is what we call our lake house environment. This is the default that you're going to get as part of, your first entry into immersive experiences. And I'll point out a couple of things. So first of all the way towards the back, there's a big picture on the wall. That artwork would be replaced by a screen share if you wanted to screen share from your Teams meeting into your in your Teams meeting period. And if people are in immersive space, they would see that screen share framed where that artwork is. And then underneath the artwork, there would be all the little boxes that you would normally see in Teams with people's video or picture or avatar or whatever they're showing, at least as many as you can kind of fit into that space. So people can hang out on those couches back there. They can have conversations with people who may not have come into immersive space. Because you can still have people in the gallery mode having conversations with people in the immersive space. What the gallery people will see is a little tag next to your name that says mesh. And that means that you have gone in your avatar format to this immersive environment. Another thing I want to point out is there's kind of a glowing purple line around that area towards the back. That creates an audio zone. And so I mentioned that we have spatial audio where you hear people better when you're closer to them. But for that particular audio zone, we've done away with spatial audio. So everybody inside the purple line hears each other equally well. That's so that people who are still in the gallery can also still hear everybody equally well. The people in the gallery would not hear the people hanging out here by the marshmallow fire roasting. And so that may be the experience you want. It may not, gives you some flexibility in how you design things. Another piece that's interesting is inside that audio zone back there, you'll notice there's kind of like a pink glowing orb there. That is an icebreaker activity. So that's going to shift around as you click it and bring up icebreaker questions like, what's your favorite breakfast? Or, what movies have you seen recently? And you can keep clicking it and it'll bring up a new picture. And then everybody in the same audio zone and the people in the gallery can also be playing along and answering that. If you want to bring up things in the Teams chat window, people still have access to Teams chat. So you can even do things like bringing up polls and other apps in the Teams chat. As soon as you step outside that glowing purple line, now you're in the spatial audio. So you'll just hear the people that you're standing close to. Off to the side there, that you can kind of see some bookshelves towards the back and some chairs. So that's a nice little kind of sitting area that people can hang out in. And there's a radio over there that you can click and it'll play music. If you want to come over to the fire pit, we have marshmallows that you can roast. Your avatars can pick them up and
We need someone's dog here roaming around eating the ones that fall on the floor.
Yeah, mine would definitely be doing that.
So that's one of the experiences. And again, the people over here at this other experience may not hear what's going on at the fire pit, just kind of like background voices. But then we have this beanbag toss.
Yeah, see? Once you throw all 6, you get the arrow on the...
And then there's another environment that's here that I didn't record, but it's more glowing spheres, but they play music and everybody can kind of click them and create kind of a sound sculpture with the glowing orbs. And that's the default environment. There's also this little button down here in the middle of the menu bar, and that will let you change into a different environment we call Oasis. It's kind of like a desert environment. And I'll show you what that looks like because that environment is available both in the custom worlds and in the immersive spaces. But this lake house environment is only available for you in the immersive space. And we can go back to the deck now. Awesome. So that's everything that you would be doing in Teams. If you wanted to do things in standalone mesh, there is a separate app that you would install for PC or Quest. And there really isn't much setup that you have to do here. So it's the same endpoints that we discussed back on the Teams immersive space here, and same ports that are here. And we have this Azure Cloud service tag that has to be there. But assuming that you have those endpoints and ports available, you just need to give someone a Teams premium license, and then they'll be able to start using the app to access the experiences that you create and create events in the Mesh portal. Now, there is an optional control that you can use. Mesh is enabled by default, but if you wanted to disable it and then maybe set up just a small pilot group of people who would be using it just at first, then that is an option that you have within this cloud policy. So I'm going to pop over here. It is config.office.com. And you come down to customization. And under customization is where you do your policy management. And there are over 2,000 policies. There are a whole bunch of things you could be configuring. So you might set something as a tenant-wide policy to allow something or block something. And then you can set other policies further down that might allow or block differently. So maybe our tenant-wide policy is to allow, but then we can come over here and we can create a block mesh policy. And the tenant-wide policy goes to everybody, but here we would be saying I have to add specific groups. So maybe I don't want my receptionists for some reason to get it. And then you're going to get this list of 2,000 policies. So we're just going to search for mesh and control access to mesh. So it is on by default from our side. So if your policy is not configured, that means it's on. But then your policy can have the 3 settings here. So enabled, disabled, or not configured. If you set it to enabled, that's going to be the same thing. You would only need to set it to enabled if you have other policies disabling, and then it will do a priority on the policies to decide which one is going to apply to a given user based on multiple group memberships. Or you could disable it here, and then you could create another one that would allow it just for certain users. The other thing to know is that this is going to manage both the PC client and the web portal where you're going to create your events. It's also going to control access to the Quest devices. And that includes being able to use a Quest device to access those immersive spaces because, oh yeah, the immersive space I just showed you with the marshmallows and the beanbag toss, when you install that MetaQuest app, you will have access to everything that has been created in the standalone Mesh event portal, and all of your Teams meetings will just be accessible by headset, even if nobody else in that meeting is going into the immersive experience. So throw on your headset, wander on in. It can be kind of fun. So that's it. Make sure you've assigned them the license, make sure the ports are open, and then they will be able to use the apps after they've installed them. So on a Quest device, we have the link in the documentation. It is available through the App Lab. So you would come in here, you would need to log in and say, yeah, I really am, I have the, my store app, I have my device, and say get. Then the next time you go in on your device, it will automatically install for you. Or if you're on the device already, you can go into the App Labs and you can, poke around and you can find the Mesh app in there to install it. For the PC app, it is in the Microsoft Store. So just like any other store app here. Too many windows. Just search for Microsoft Mesh. It'll come up. Click install, or in my case, open, since I've already installed it here. You can also use mobile device management to install it, like Intune can deploy store apps. That's, again, something that's outside of Mesh, but talk to your Intune admins or whoever's managing your MDM. So if you want to do events either in immersive or in standalone, now I'm going to talk a little bit about some things to think about. And I literally have a whole hour just on event planning. So I'm going to give you just a tip of the iceberg on, some thinking about events. And then I'll also give you just a taste about how to do an event end to end, a simple event, a more complicated event. And that could, just doing the event itself could be a full hour. So, the first thing I like to think about with Mesh, I think really it has been laid out brilliantly as I've seen people struggle to get into some of these other platforms. Start them with the avatars, get them comfortable being in an avatar space, get them to love their avatar. Halloween is coming up. You could have an avatar holiday costume contest, right? Get people excited. And then when they're already used to their avatars, then it's just those 2 clicks to get them into the immersive experience in Teams. So if you're already meeting in Teams, you have your weekly staff meeting, take the first 10 minutes, have people jump into immersive, wander around, roast some marshmallows and play some bean bags, get them comfortable in there, get them used to the keys that they're going to use. Then it's a pretty easy jump, make sure they have the app installed, and then they can go into whatever custom environment you want in there, and you can design all sorts of other types of interactive experiences. But it's a nice flow to get people used to it in stages. So one of the things that you'll need to think about, we have 2 different immersive experiences. How do you decide which one you want to use? And I would say, really, if you're going for easy, go with immersive space, because it's the 2 clicks. If they have their avatar there, there's nothing else to install, just, as the admin making sure that it's enabled on the back end. But immersive space can only do 16 people, period, end of sentence at this point. So if you have 20 people in your meeting, then you're probably going to want to move over and do it in the Mesh app, or accept that you're going to have to leave 4 people in gallery while 16 people go into the immersive space. And you can decide if that's the experience that you want. But if you want a big event, Mesh apps can have up to 200 people. And of course, we are working to increase these, but at public preview, this is what we got here. So you have people install that separate app. You have multiple rooms in the event. So it's actually a little bit more than 200 because it's multiples of 16. And what will happen is when the first room of 16 fills up, then people will start filling up the next room and the next room and the next room until you've used up all whatever you've set your maximum for that particular event is. And then when you have content, when you share your screen or you put up a picture, that will be echoed across every instance of the room. And if you have people who are speaking, presenting, you use a little broadcast button that I'll show you. And then there's whatever their whole avatar will be projected across all of those rooms. And that's how you get larger events. Of course, the other thing you could do is you could just have multiple events running at the same time, but they would be different experiences. You wouldn't be able to project your content across them. But you might want to set up like just 2 different rooms to wander around and socialize in. If you want to customize your event in any way, you do need to be using the standalone Mesh app for that. And that can either be a custom environment that you've done in Unity, where you can do like all sky's the limit, really cool stuff. But even in just regular standalone Mesh, there is a way to do it inside the Mesh app. So you can just add right now pictures, videos, and screen shares. We'll work on allowing other types of items to be brought in. And those can be things like your company logo or a welcome sign, descriptions for other icebreakers you want to run. All sorts of things can be done if you want to customize your space, but only in the Mesh app, not in the Teams immersive experience. On the other hand, the Teams immersive experience does have that built-in chat. So I mentioned if you wanted to do in-chat apps or still just be using that as a back channel for people to talk to each other, it's great. And accessibility is, of course, an issue. Microsoft's very committed to accessibility, but as a whole, it's been kind of a difficult thing to crack to be completely accessible in all of the immersive experiences. So if you do stay in, have some people stay in gallery, then they'll be able to get the closed captions. If they have any visual issues, those are addressed pretty well in just regular teams there. And then other people could be in the audio zone, and everybody can still be interacting. It's a bit trickier if you want to take people inside the app because we don't have a voice to text thing yet, or visual assistance inside the app. But accessibility is important. We are working on these things. Let me grab a question here. Oh, can you record an avatar as a host or a guide to play something repeatedly? Sure. In fact, some of the TAP customers I've worked with have started using avatars, not even during a live meeting when they're with other people, but like one of our guys said, yeah, it's late and I'm home and, I don't want to be on camera. And so I just have my avatar record whatever little bit that I need to record out there. So you can just go into Teams and record it, like just the demo that I showed there. That was me being full screen there in Teams. Or you could have, different people in avatars having conversations, record all of that. Sure. The other thing to think about is you don't always want to do everything in immersive. Teams and Teams Live are great. We've used them forever. People really know them and understand them. So, I'm not saying throw everything out and just go immersive just because you have immersive now. Really, the places where immersive are best. If you have headsets, they cannot multitask. I put my headset on and I am there. I am not looking at my email. I am not, checking my cell phone. If people take it off to look at those things, it's pretty obvious what's going on there. But like we said, we know not everybody's going to be using headsets at first. So really the sweet spot for this would be to say the socializing before, during, or after a presentation. I went to a fantastic SharePoint conference that they did in an immersive environment, but they didn't let us talk to each other between all of the great programming they had. And I really wanted to talk to these people because I was seeing people in this event that I hadn't seen in years. And I could see people recognizing each other and going, hi. So let people talk. Let people have that free range conversation. The other thing is, some content is just open brain, insert content. But a lot of times, we want to bring people together to experience something. And so that, I think, gives a much more embodied experience because of the avatars when you do it in mesh, either, sharing through your team's immersive space or bringing in a screen share thing into your custom space. And that could also be playing pre-recorded content into a meeting, but still letting us experience it together as a group. It's great for virtual happy hours because you can actually get up and walk around. If somebody's monopolizing the conversation or on a topic you don't like, just say, I'm going to get a virtual drink. I'll see you later. And, head off to the marshmallow pits and get some marshmallows. Another thing that's really great for this would be, think of like a science fair or a booth expo kind of experience where you have little booths kind of scattered around and they can have the signage that you brought in, either something you've built in Unity with all the bells and whistles, or even just the in-app customization that you can do. You can put up different signs and people can go from booth to booth. You still only get 16 people per room. So maybe you have, room A, B, and C with different booths in them, and they're set up as separate events and people can just go from booth to booth. Also, guided tour experiences are great in here. You may have seen some of the work that Accenture has done with their new joiner experience. And that's really like this big guided tour museum kind of thing where you wander through this beautiful environment and you see information about the company culture and, and their norms and their expectations and training that's available. And so that's another thing that you could build very beautifully in Unity and then bring into Mesh, or you could just, add pictures and things and create a very simple walkthrough experience just with the custom Mesh app. Can you import spatial Unity space into Mesh? So I got to say, I'm the IT pro gal on the team. I am not the Unity programming gal, so I don't know what spatial Unity space is. But if you just have, like a good basic environment, we have a tutorial that I'll show towards the end there, and you can use that to import. I do know people who've developed in Blender and then they bring it into Unity, and then from Unity they bring it into Mesh. But, basically it's just, you just kind of get it to the point where you can get it into mesh and you're good. All right, so some more demos here. So we'll talk about creating your invite, and I'll give you a couple pro tips about managing invites. I'll actually go into mesh and I'll wander around a little bit. You can take a look at what's going in there. And so when you are attending events, you're going to start your mesh app here from the start menu, just like you would anything else. And so I've already got mine running, so I don't have to wait for it to load. I have some upcoming events. I don't have anything happening now, but I am going to set that up by coming into portal.mesh.microsoft.com. So I can create an event here, or I can go to the events tab and create an event, same difference here. So if I wanted to set up my all hands for contoso.com, and one of the pro tips I'm going to give is if you want to be able to customize your event, you need to set it in the future, because when you get to 10 minutes before the event, that's when attendees can start coming into your event and you're going to be blocked from doing any customization. So if I want to customize this event, I'm actually going to usually set it to be like a day or two from now, and it'll set both of them over here. And we'll just make it run for, there we go. And I can put in a description. I can upload thumbnails here, which will make it show up on the dashboard. So like I have this PNG that I've set up here for my all hands. And then we get to the rooms. So I mentioned you could have a max of 200. Well, in a single room, I only get 16. But if I change this to multiple rooms, now I can have up to 200 with 16 people per room. Now, if I had 20 people, what it's going to do is fill the first 16, and then I could have a room with 4. So what I might want to do in that case is say, no, actually, I want to have 10 people per room and up to 200 participants there. It is very important to think about this in advance, because once you set this, then you cannot change it after event is created. You would have to delete this event and create a whole new one to have a different room configuration. So then I can do environments or templates. And an environment, as it says here, is something without any stuff added, without artifacts added. So this is like straight as it came out of Unity, no customization. And so I'm always going to have to start my very first time in Mesh with just an environment. But then after I customize my environments, I can save those customizations as templates so that I can use them very quickly again to spin up new meetings. So I will start here with an environment. And if this is your very first time and you haven't done any Unity creation and uploading, you're not even going to have anything else happening over here under the worlds. But I have created a world under this button here, and I have uploaded some stuff here. But let's pretend this is your very first time. You just want to do a little trial event here. So right now we are shipping 2 environments. I mentioned Oasis before, which you can also get in Teams Immersive Space. And then there is a Meadow environment. Internally, we call that our all hands environment because it's very big and broad. But I can use any environment I want for any activity I want. I'm going to use Oasis here so I can show you a little bit about that one. And again, once you select this, it cannot be changed after the event. So make sure you are choosing wisely here. Now, another place to choose wisely. You can have organizers and attendees. So organizer, and this you can change anytime after you've done this. So you don't have to invite anybody. And my pro tip is very often I don't assign any organizers or attendees at first, because I want to kind of like set up some things the way I want them. And then I can go back and I can add them here, or I can actually add them in Outlook. There's some good reason for doing that. So my organizers here would be other people who are able to customize the event and use the event hosting tools during the event. So I want to choose these people very carefully. The other thing that's going to happen with your co-organizers is when you go into a multi-room event, there's actually going to be like a special room that is set aside separate from everything else. Think of that like the broadcast studio, and only the organizers and co-organizers go in there. All of the attendees start filling out the regular rooms up to the max, and then they start filling out those rooms. So if you want to do kind of like a live studio audience and bring in some friendly people, you can just make them co-organizers. Just make sure they're not going to mess up with your customization or your invites or anything. And my pro tip is don't add your attendees in here. I know you can do it, But as soon as I do that and click create event, it's going to start showing up on their calendar. And I want to be able to customize my event first. So yeah, it's going to show up for Lynn because she's there. I'm logged in as Alex Wilbur on this one. And so I set that to be a couple days out here. It's going to take a minute for it to refresh. There we go. So that's the one that I just set up here, my all hands. And if I want to edit it, then I can come over here, and this is where I can add distribution lists. You can't add distribution lists in the previous one. So we're having a Women of Mesh event today for women on my team. I could add my Women of Mesh alias if I have it here. I can also come down and customize the description that I put in the event in the portal would show up here. My icon shows up here, but I can also add any other content that I want here, and then add the people, and then send it, and everybody will get it. So that's what I recommend. If people decline the invite, then they will not see the app when they come in to their dashboard here. And I'm not seeing it yet, but I have a refresh button up here that I can click. Oh, yeah, we are in beta. Come on. Yeah. All right, well, we'll see how the rest of this demo goes here. Let me just try coming out and coming back in. I'll talk about something else while it's thinking about that. Let's see. So we did have one question here. So let's see. Where's my? There we go. Let's see. I started a trial. I'm sorry, that's a pretty broad question here. Is it correct I'm not able to make use with just this license? I don't know. I'd have to be able to see what's going on there. That should do it for you. Should everything be there? Oh, Anna's saying maybe you quit teams. And remember also you have to be in classic teams, not new teams. So I created my event, and we talked about the single and multiple rooms. I gave you my tip about don't add people in the portal, add them in the Outlook event. And we'll come back in and hope that I can get into my event here because I just got a couple of minutes. So going into my Alex account. Is 16 person a current constraint? There's always a possibility. Obviously we know that people want to have larger meetings, but this is public preview. This is what we got for public preview. Okay, here we go. So my Contoso All Hands is marked as an upcoming. If I went to go and change that to happening now, then I would not be able to customize it. But because I set it up in advance, when I come in to look at it, you notice that I have just this option down here to customize. And then when I join, it's going to feel like I'm in the event, but only the organizers and co-organizers can go in to this customization space and go in up to 10 minutes before the event is going to start. And so this is where I can start adding in other items. Is over here, I have my artifact or my environment editor. So I can say that I want to add something like an image. And the images and the videos that I add would come from OneDrive or from SharePoint. So I actually have SharePoint here that I've set up. No, not that one. Okay, I'm not finding my SharePoint for some reason. So I can add a screen share. And what that's going to do is that's kind of giving me this great big piece here. So I wanted to scoot that over a little bit. And I can make things bigger by grabbing the handles. I can rotate things by pulling on the side handles or the up and down handles and rotate things back and forth. And then this screen share is going to be available to me when I have content that I want to display by coming over here to what's called the host panel. So if you missed that, there's my little host panel. And underneath the host panel, this is where I'm going to be able to do things that happen during my meeting. So for example, the screen share, I can pick a monitor or a window, just like we might do in, regular team sharing. And then once I click that, my experience to actually kind of see it in action, I'm going to be over here and I can page through it. I don't see it in the room at this point. Again, this is public preview, some room to grow with things, but I can kind of watch both places here if I keep it in a little window like this one. And then we mentioned that you might want to have multiple people spread across rooms. So I can come up here and I can start broadcasting. Oh, because I'm in the customization space. Normally I would have gone into another one, but since I couldn't get in at first. So when I start broadcasting, everyone will see my avatar and hear my avatar because there's going to be this megaphone effect. If I just want to megaphone within the space that I'm in, everybody will be able to hear me regardless of spatial audio. And if I have multiple rooms, everybody across the multiple rooms will be able to hear me. So those are a couple of your host options here. And then after I've done whatever customizations that I want to do on this template, when I come back to my dashboard, I have the option over here to say save as template. Now I have to have a world that I created in the portal first. So I already have a default world that I created called Contoso HR. Otherwise I have to go back to my portal, create a world, come in here, and then I can just give this a name and a comment. And it's going to save it as a draft. So I have this little space over here for manage event templates. And I get to it from that little button. And that will let me see everything that is in draft or published. Now flipping back to my portal here. I can create a world. And you can see the members. Anybody who is a member of this world will be able to use that template to create their own events. And the owners can also change the settings in here. So you can see environments and templates that I've created from those environments inside my my portal. And all the users have access to this one. So the last thing that I want to show here. That was doing all of just the in-app customization. That was something that is, very easy to be able to, to put together. Let's see, the worlds and the templates. So the toolkit is a way to get used to being able to create your own experiences in Unity or in something else and bring it into Unity, as we mentioned. So we have a whole 101 thing that we can walk you through. There is a whole nother recording of that one. You can see some of my teammates, Mega and Brent, working through that one. So when you download all of your toolkit files, they'll just be in there in Explorer. So like I have my starting point in Unity. I already have it loaded because that always takes a while to load up and didn't want you sitting here watching this one. So this has some prefab content, and you could hold your events in these samples if you wanted to. We have several samples that are available. There is a physics room. There is kind of like a science fair. There's a dart room. Toy Box has a bunch of little games kind of scattered through this another little island place. It's pretty fun. And I am not a developer. I do not code in Unity. So, about all I know about the Unity is, we have this mesh toolkit option up here. You have to sign in. So this is where I know on the IT Pro side, and this account has to be in that same Entra ID as the event, where the world is, where the users are. Everybody's in the same place here. So I'm signing in as my Alex account here, and then I can create environments, and I can say, like what the starting screens are and what the thumbnails are and what the capacity is for those worlds. And I can update environments, including deciding if this is going to be built for PC, and then the Android is what you would need to build it for Quest devices because they're Android based. And then once I click build and publish, that's when whatever I called this world is going to show up in my portal here, actually it would show up under environments and under worlds. So you can see, the Contoso HR world, anything I've uploaded, like that wind farm demo, would just show up there and be available. So lots of this is, the very high level overview that we've got going here. I could easily spend an hour on pretty much any topic in this conversation. But to wrap up, I would say, immersive space and Teams is really easy to get. You just need those Teams licenses. Make sure that no one's disabled it by policy or, some of the other settings that are in there, and then tell people to go into Teams, say view immersive space. And then for Microsoft Mesh, make sure they have the Teams premium licenses. Go create events in your portal, install the Store app either on PC or Quest. And if you want to do the custom environments, go check out the Mesh 101 tutorial and the Unity toolkit. So last question here, can you enable your camera in immersive mode or PC mode? So I didn't show, but when you're in the custom environment, you actually have both a selfie camera and you can take pictures of the environment from your avatar in there, and they'll show up in your OneDrive for whatever user is taking those pictures. Most of the time, though, I actually just use the screen capture. I use, Windows Shift S, and I just capture the screen rather than take the pictures. But, if you want to get the selfie, if you want to get your avatar and everybody else in the background, I've got some great pictures like that of events that I've been in. It's pretty fun. The video does not show up above the avatar. It does in some platforms. I think Frame VR does that, where you can project a little video in there. We don't have that at this point. It's, it's just your avatar there. Help for login issues with Teams. I think we had a little trailer that was running across the bottom there that had the link for support. There we go. Mesh overview, troubleshooting in fact, aka.ms mesh docs. There is a troubleshooting topic in there. So go check out mesh docs for that, and for some of the other places where I was pointing out content links in there. Lots of stuff in those mesh docs, and we are improving them all the time. Those docs are all in a GitHub repository. So if you have suggestions or corrections, or I don't understand this, let us know. Give us feedback there. We really appreciate it. And in the app itself, when you go into the little menu on the bottom left there, the little 9 dots, there is a feedback option there. Please send us feedback. We definitely want to hear what's working and what's not working for you. It's how we find bugs. It's how we improve the product. All right, other questions? All right, Anna, I'll hand it back to you.
Cathy, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have time, please fill out an event survey. Our event code is 20929. You can take that at aka.ms/reactor/survey. I can also drop that in our chats. Thanks again for joining. Feel free to join the Reactor Meetup if you like more content like this, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.